Ford Raptor has been the baddest truck in the game for around about a decade now, but a couple weeks ago, FCA dropped their Ram TRX. It's a Hellcat powered Raptor feasting super truck. And as usual, when the news broke, I did a video on it. And as you would expect, everyone's fierce and undying passion and loyalty for their brand, whether it be Ford, GM, or FCA, well, you guys had it out in the comments and it was a bloodbath. And it's pretty typical fashion. I'm used to this sort of thing. However, while we were fighting in the comments, GM was up to something, and it's this. The fully electric Hummer EV. That's right, while we were having it out in the comments and Ford and FCA were playing checkers, GM was playing chess. So that's it, let's go lights out on the Hummer EV. So for the sake of this video, I'm going to keep it fairly brief because the Hummer EV was just launched this week and we don't have full details. There will be more to come in the coming weeks and we'll do subsequent videos from there. But let's keep it high level right now. The biggest difference between the Hummer EV, the Raptor, and the TRX is, as you guessed it, powertrains. It's gas, it's electric. Two of these things are not like the one. Well, that's not how it goes. Isn't it ironic that the Hummer is the one to go electric? Now let's get into powertrains because that's why we're all here, right? So let's start with the smallest one, the Ford Raptor. It's been here for years. It came out as a V8. More recently, in the current generation, it finds itself with an EcoBoost twin turbocharged V6. It's 3.5 liters and it puts out 450 horsepower. Of course, it's got over 500 pound-feet of torque, and apparently that's more important depending on who you are and what you do with your truck. However, the important thing is, and the video I previously did, is as the TRX was launched, Ford teased or rumored that they're going to be putting their Predator engine under there. That's their supercharged V8. You know, the one that you can find in the GT500? Yeah, that thing, making 725 horsepower. Would love to see it. Ford, please make it a real thing. But in any case, we have to stay on track and talk about a real truck that exists and you will be able to buy next year, the Ram TRX. Like we said, 6.2 liters of supercharged V8 Fury. The Hellcat engine finds its way under one of, well, honestly, one of the best trucks in the game lately. Their new Ram is fantastic. FCA, you did a great job. And just to boot, throw a Hellcat engine in it. Why not? Now, if we're going to speculate about future trucks or upcoming models, of course, FCA could throw their Demon engine in it. They've got a Elephant. We won't even talk about that right now. What we will talk about is the checkers game that we were playing with the FCA and Fords, and the chess game that GM was playing in their Hummer EV. Now, like we said, it's not gas, it's electric, so electric power plants are typically pretty stout, full of torque, but let's talk about horsepower. Right off from the bat, they throw down 4 figures worth of ponies, 1,000 horsepower. Seems good enough. It's about more than double what the Raptor has, and yeah, just about 300 more horsepower than you can find in the new TRX that everyone's losing their minds about. However, that's not really the big number here. The big marketing number is the, and I can't believe this is real and they've marketed this, 11,500 pound-feet of torque. That is a stupid number. It's not real. It means nothing. You're not accounting for drive ratios or whatever. It's not real, which is actually kind of a shame because a lot of these electric power plants have a huge torque figure to begin with, so you don't need to market this insane, unrealistic nonsense number that means nothing. Just give us the real number. I'm sure it's well over 1,000, and that's more than really anything. Now, I want to take a minute and talk about something really quick because we're talking about some of the baddest off-road trucks on the planet. And that's true, they are. However, whereas things like the Ram and the Ford are limited by suspension travel, underbody armor, that sort of thing, the Hummer doesn't really seem limited by anything other than, well, it's range. If you want to go 350 miles, you can, but that's got to be round trip. If the Hummer wants to play with the Raptor and the TRX and they go 351 miles away, Hummer's shit out of luck. Now, I know in 10 minutes you can get about 100 miles of range on an 800 volt DC fast charger, but I don't think they have those in Moab. I mean, I guess what I'm saying is the whole ethos of a badass off-road go-anywhere truck is kind of destroyed by the fact that it's got a 350 mile range and it's kind of tethered to this string, you know what I mean, to a supercharger network or some sort of charging station, because you can't just bring an extra jerry can full of gas. You can't just bring an extra, Energizer rechargeable battery pack. It doesn't work like that. So it's kind of interesting that one, the badass off-road go anywhere, ex-military, H1 Humvee Hummer sort of thing is now tethered to this charging string, and two, it's kind of an overcorrection from the gas. It used to be this massive gas guzzler that was ridiculous, and now it's completely the other way. So, I mean, I'll leave it up to you. Leave it down in the comments what your thoughts are, but it seems kind of silly, the ethos behind this sort of thing. Now, with that, I want to take a step back, and I don't want to come off as negative because this was really an incredible machine. And let's talk about some of the more off-roading credentials that it has. First of all is we have 4-wheel steering, and that's really cool on tarmac because when you're at speed, and this thing is pretty quick, 0 to 60 in 3 seconds dead, it's nice to have that added stability when you're in a corner. You can also corner tighter, and that's really nice to have on the road. And on the trails, it's also nice to have that shorter turning radius if you need to make a nice sharp turn or avoid any sort of terrain. Also, with that being said, since you have 4 wheels that turn, is you can have this thing called crab walk mode. I think that's what GM is calling it. Essentially what it means is, here's your wheels. If you want to go to the right, they both turn that way, and you just kind of go diagonally. It's a really weird thing to see, but it's kind of badass, and it reminds me of what Rivian has done with their kind of tank turns. I'll show a clip of both of those on the screen here. And now, since you've kind of pivoted and crab walked and kind of gotten out of that little valley of rocks, you'll need to summit it on the other side. And what better way to do that than with the standard 35-inch tires? That's pretty good, pretty practical. GM says that they're kind of balanced between off-road use and on tarmac use, so they're not going to be a complete nightmare on the road, but they're going to be great off-road. And also the Hummer EV is ready without modification to go up to 37-inch rubber. And speaking of wheels, let's talk about the things attached to the wheels, and that's the suspension. This thing is going to be riding on air suspension, and what that means is you can totally adjust the ride height and that sort of thing depending on what you're doing. Now, when you're going to be in, I forget what they call it, like watt for freedom, I don't know, it's like in the launch mode, it hunkers down about 2 inches with the air suspension, so you're more aerodynamic. And then when you're off the road, you have extraction mode. I love how they put the names of these things. Like, this is ridiculous and completely unnecessary, but everything has to have a name. So in extraction mode, the truck will actually raise itself up 6 inches. That's average size. No, but in any case, it actually is super helpful to kind of have that. We see the Mercedes GLEs, they have their kind of bounce mode. Now, I don't know if the Hummer does that, but I think it would be a reasonably easy software patch to add that sort of thing if you're going to be doing things like dune bashing and sand running like the Raptor and the T-Rex. Now, the final thing I want to talk about with the off-road kit is this, and they call it like Ultra Vision or something, but essentially what it means is there's 18 camera views, or at least like 18 cameras around the whole body of the Hummer EV. And that's fantastic because you always need to know where your wheels are, especially if you're off-roading, you're crawling, you don't want to take a rock into the tire or the wheel or the side of your body. So it's really nice to have that. But the important thing that you have here, and a first that I've seen ever anywhere, is the fact that you can have a frontward facing camera underneath your body and a rearward facing camera underneath. So you know exactly what kind of clearance you're getting between rocks, ruts, dirt, all that sort of thing. Here's my problem though. That's great to have a camera under your body, and you have additional armor under there, skid plates and all sorts of reinforcement and sort of that's pretty normal. But if you have a camera under there, let's say you do hit a rock or a rut or a root or anything under there, one, the camera is either going to get broken, or two, let's say you go dune bashing or go through water. We don't have a water fording depth, by the way, come on GM, but it's gonna get covered in filth and grime. It's under the car, like it's gonna get super filthy. You won't be able to see anything out of the camera anyway. Either way, super cool feature, and to be completely honest, that kind of rounds out a lot of the stuff that we've been told at the launch. And everything on paper adding up seems like it either takes it to the Raptor and the T-Rex or beats it. Let me know down in the comments what you think. But I'm super excited because this is not just an off-road truck, but this is also a sophisticated on-road luxury Hummer, which again, sounds like an oxymoron, luxury Hummer. But let's get into it because of course, only 5 to 10% of you are going to take this thing off-road anyway. We're going to talk about the exterior design first of all, and I have to say that I absolutely think they nailed it. They did a fantastic job bringing an old kind of vintage trucky feel into a more modern and contemporary design while still maintaining the masculinity. Another great example is Ford's Bronco. They've done a fantastic job of taking an old vintage thing, making it modern, and not losing any of that kind of muscularity. So I think absolute kudos to them. Another thing that I really like is the LED kind of it's not really a grille, it's not really a headlight, but the entire bar that goes across the front of the truck. Really cool, very signature Hummer with the six little patterns or whatever it is. But the important thing is on the actual headlights, the end cap LEDs, you'll have interesting animations for when you approach the truck, when you leave the truck, and also when it's charging. So you know about how much it's charging and if it's still, connected. Because how many times has a Tesla owner walked away from their car and found out that he didn't plug it in? And I won't spend too much more time on the outside of the truck. I do want to mention that they do have the revolutionary, they like to use the word revolutionary in their launch video, by the way, which kind of irks me, but we'll get to that later. But they do have the Sierra kind of multi-pro tailgate or whatever they were calling it. It seems to open in a couple different ways, but again, didn't show it, but we know that it's gonna have it because GM. And I wanna pose an honest question to you truck owners out there, so I really wanna hear from you in the comments. Do you care about this multi-pro tailgate sort of thing? I've seen that the Ram has the one that kind of opens sideways. Honda's got one that I think is kind of funky, and then the Sierra was the first one to do it, but is that do you care about that sort of thing? Leave it down in the comments, I want to know. And then as we get into the interior, I have to say, yeah, it looks pretty rugged and masculine while still being modern and contemporary and luxurious and elegant. I do think that. The interesting thing is it looks like a lot of the buttons, knobs, and switches have been rubberized because of course you're going to be hosing down your interior with your white leather when it gets dirty and muddy because you've been ripping it. In any case, I do like the gold accents. I think they look pretty sweet, and the interior does look super, super good. One of the things that I want to talk about is the fully digital gauge cluster right in front of the steering wheel. It's pretty tablety, which I don't love, but it looks like there's a lot of functionality there, and it looks like the graphics are pretty crisp, so we'll see if that makes it into production models. Now, you also have a massive head unit. And to be honest, I've had quite a few GM products over the years and I've never had an issue with their infotainment system. So it's gonna be a newer one, I think. And yeah, it'll be good, it'll be fine. It'll have all the stuff that you wanna have. And that brings me to GM's Super Cruise. Now this is actually a fantastic system and I don't think it gets enough credit. Hyundai Kia has a great system and Tesla are the only ones that I think might be better. But this is gonna be a new generation of Super Cruise, so I'm really excited to get it on the road and see how it does. And then possibly the best thing about this Hummer, at least from an interior perspective, is the infinity roof. You have transparent panels over the front and the rear, but those panels also come out and you can stow them in the front. Now, this was great, Wrangler did it first, however, you couldn't really put them anywhere. Yeah, not great. Bronco came along, you could take that stuff off, you could put it in the trunk, fantastic. However, now, you can't put anything else in the trunk because you've got your roof back there. Hummer came in, fixed it, put it in the front, you've still got a whole bed back there, perfect. Ultimately, I think this new Hummer EV is a fantastic machine. It has the off-road chops to go anywhere that the Raptor and the TRX do, as long as it's not further than 350 miles. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, hit that thumbs up, subscribe for more Hummer EV content as we learn more about it, and I'll see you guys next time.